Welcome to the Foreman community demo. It's been a while since we did one. Hopefully we will get back into doing this more routinely. We got a few items to show today. And to start us off will be Merrick talking about partition tables work. Over to you, Merrick.
Hello everyone. So recently I've been playing with partition tables and provisioning templates, and I tried to make them using the same features. So I'd like to show the output of my effort. So first change you can see here is in the menu. So we have partition tables and provisioning templates under the templates submenu here. For now, please ignore the job templates because they are added from some plugin that I use here. So let's go to the partition tables. First change that you'll notice is that the table is basically very similar to what we have for provisioning template. So we have a snippet column here and the log status. If you add a new partition table, you can see that the form slightly changed. So let's create a new partition table here. We have the default flag here, which means if you set this partition table to be default, it's automatically added to newly created organizations and locations. And we have nice editor here with syntax highlight and preview features. And you can also use or upload templates from your local hard drive. So you can select the text file and it's pasted into the editor. And you can save comments for auditing. Here, the type is the same. You can make this partition table as a snippet and include it in another partition table. And association remain the same, so you can select operating system family. And we also allow to set locations and organizations for partition table. So now, let me save this partition table. For provisioning templates, we already had features like cloning and locking. So if I lock this partition table, it basically works the same as for provisioning templates. It prevents you editing this locked partition table. So this is read-only mode. I can't type anything. Oh, sorry. And I have to clone it. This is used when you try to edit a template provided by the installer. So you have to clone it first, give it some different name, save it, and it creates a new partition table under a new name. It clone also attributes like the assigned OS family. And you can unlock the template, of course, or the partition table, sorry. And to show you the auditing feature, I can do a change here, save it, and then when I reopen the form for this table, I can navigate to the history here, and I can see that there is my audit command. I can even show the difference between the previous version. So I can see that there was a change on this line, and I see the whole history here. So that's basically it for partition tables. There's one more thing to notice. If you define permissions for partition tables, you can notice that there is a new permission for locking. It's the same as for provisioning templates. And also, if you use some permissions for provisioning templates, they were renamed to be consistent, so the name is consists of the action and the provisioning template here. There's a migration that changes all permissions for you, so it should be automatically handled. So that's it, unless there are any questions.
Looks like there is a question on IRC around, can the type association be in the main tab?
Yeah, so currently it's not possible. We could probably improve that later, but these tabs are shared for all templates types. You can add more custom tabs here, which I'll show later today for the job templates, but currently it's hard-coded like this. So later we can improve this.
All right. Don't see any other questions at this time, but they may trickle in since there's a slight delay. So we'll move on next to Lukasz to show off a few small things.
All right. Okay. So let me try to share my screen, and can you see my terminal?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So there's two things. The first one is BNC space console. We had a port range. I think it's 5003 to 55200 to 55300. No, 52 and 30. I think we have 30 ports allocated, and what we do is every time you click on console, we try to spawn a VNC spices, the WebSockets proxy, which is a Python little thing, and we spawn it from the Foreman itself, and we try it with 5200, and if it fails, if the application can't mine the port, then we increase it by one and doing this all the time until we find a free port, server port. And this works, but it spawns a lot of processes first. Second, the VNC, the WebSockets proxy, actually errors out, and this Python application generates an RT exception, like the bug reporting tracer collects this. So every time you click on console, and there are like 5 processes running, so you generate five ABRT reports and kind of stuff. So we committed a patch that randomizes the port. So we try to retry a random port out of this port range. If that's failed, we try again. But usually, you'll find the probability is low. So what you need to do is if you're allowed only like 3 or 4 ports on your firewall, you need to allow a whole port range, which is, I think, by default 30. It's hard-coded in Foreman, but it's 30 port numbers. And my second thing I wanted to show you is Foreman Debug. Foreman Debug tool is very helpful tool, which now works both on Foreman proxy, and Foreman core. And by default, when you run it without any options, it offered you to upload the report to our debug server, or it's just a write-only server where Foreman core developer has read access to. And now we've changed this a little bit. If you want to upload, you need to provide a -u option. If you don't provide that, it won't ask you. It was causing issues with some non-interactive modes. So it's much better than now. And of course, if you want to change that behavior, there we now provide a configuration file, which is somewhere in Foreman, and I think it's called Foreman Debug conf, which allows you to change that here, if you really want to have the, actually you can override any of these options. So if you use it a lot, then you can provide those. It's a shell script, so you can provide, like, if you want to do your own compress utility instead of bzip, or so you can do this like xz or something. So this is a very tiny improvement. Foreman and Katello is very valuable tool for us to collect, and to resolve issues. And I hope these are good improvements. So that's it. Thanks.
Lukasz, looks like we had one question. If we are randomizing ports, how do the firewall guys know what to set up?
Sorry, we are randomizing in the range of 5,200 to 230. I can, let me just quickly, it's, what is it? It's like 530. So it's not a whole, it's from within this port range. Okay. You need to be aware.
All right. Thank you, Lukasz. Up next, we've got Steven, who's going to talk about some salt improvements.
Good morning. I'm going to demo a new feature in the latest version of the Salt plugins for Foreman. This is one of the most requested features. You can now import your states from the Salt master instead of adding them directly. So this works just like the Puppet feature. If you go to the states page, you'll have a button for importing. You click import. It will ask the Salt master for a list of all the states and environments, and then you can decide which ones to accept and update. And that's it. What's new as part of this is states are actually now connected to environments in Foreman itself. So you create a new host and select Salt master environment. The states list will actually update based on what's in the environment itself. That's really it for the UI feature. There's a couple of things you need to do in setting this up. The Salt plugin 2.1 or 2.0 for the Smart Proxy requires using the Salt API now. So just follow the instructions on the Salt documentation for how to set up the REST API. You just need to give and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Steven. We'll see if any other questions trickle in. And in the meantime, we'll move over to Yvonne to talk about Dynflow multi-executors and updates in that area.
Hello, let me try to share my screen if I can do that. Okay, I want to share just part of the screen, but let me just quickly decrease my workspace so that I can share the entire screen. So now it will be better. So I'm sharing now with this. and I will increase the terminal as well. So the first thing that I would like to show you is basically the time flow and the Foreman task for now had the limitation for running only one executor, and the executor had to be on the same server as the web server itself, because we were communicating over the socket. So we were aware of this limitation, and it was blocking us from doing more HA kind of stuff, and also having the Foreman task and Dimeflow available globally for all the Foreman deployments, even when they are running on multiple hosts. So there was work on Dimeflow side to do that. We also migrated the backend from our custom concurrent abstractions to the concurrent Ruby gem, which is also a great addition. And we have now more folks working on from the community working on really the concurrent stuff, so we are not alone in this anymore. So what I will show you, so I have here a Katello instance with the new Dimeflow and Foreman task running. So the first thing that you can notice that the Dimeflow console has now navigation bar.
Lost your screen sharing.
Really? Sorry for that. Let's try again. Stop sharing. Entire screen. Is it on now?
Yep, see it now.
Okay, so you can notice that in Dimeflow console there's a navigation bar now, and in the status with information about, we call it worlds. This will probably get enhanced in the future, but for now you can see that I have one executor running. I can see where it's running, so if I had more hosts, it would be visible here. I can even see the bit. So I will show how when the more executors are running. So let me try adding a new repository here. Let's say the Foreman nightlies. Save. And so what I will try to do is first running the synchronization. Now I will run a second executor. And now the only question is if I will download that before the second executor is ready. We will see in a minute. So now I'm waiting for another Dimeflow executor to start. It loads the whole Rails environment, so it takes a while. Okay, now I'm stopping the Foreman tasks, and let's see if I managed to stop that before. It still was finished by the first executor. Anyway, so the timing wasn't the best. I need a bigger repository later, but I did the same before. And so what happens is, so in this case, I run the repository sync again. It was started by one executor with this world ID, and then in the middle, I've killed this executor, and the work was picked up by the second executor without the user even having to notice. So we did the work for basically for the user not to care that much about which executor was running that, and we try, if possible, to handle that. So that's basically the biggest change that is visible, and then there was a huge change on the backend side for this to make happen. So from now on, no sockets should be needed for the communication. The installer changes, there were no installer changes at all, so it should all work as before. All the plugins should be fine except Katello, which runs one task that needs to be just one task running at a time. So in case there are more executors, this might break, so there is a pull request on the Katello side to make sure, even in the multiple executors scenario, to run one task only once. But besides that, it should be pretty straightforward to migrate, and we are aiming for the Foreman 1.9 to get this in.
All right. Let's say thank you and moving on, but you are next up to talk about some of the remote execution status.
Okay, so hello again. I've shared my screen again. So I would like to also show the progress on the back end for the Foreman remote execution on the smart proxy side, and it's also Dyneflow related. So I haven't moved these repositories to the Foreman organization yet, but there are two new repositories. One is smart proxy Dyneflow, which is nothing else than basically preparation environment for using the Dyneflow on the smart proxy side. You might want it for the orchestration. We now use it mainly for the asynchronous operations. And the second smart proxy SSH is the plugin into the smart proxy to provide a SSH provider for the remote execution. So I will show how this works or the current work. So I've run the Foreman proxy here, and let's see if I have it open now. So it's 9292. So Dyneflow console, again, you can see the new Dyneflow here, and it's ready to do some work for us. So what I will do is call an API that the SSH provider provides. So this is the API that the Foreman will use for running the commands. So I pass some ID to map basically the command on the Foreman side with this task, what effective user should be used, and what script should be run on the remote host. So I have here some just demo script that I will use for the demonstration. It just loops in and sleeps for some time, producing some output. And I will, for now, I will just run it on the local host, but we go over the SSH for every time. So once I've triggered that, you can see that the Foreman proxy started doing something. And when I show the details, this is really raw data that we collect. So you can see that we, every time some output is there, we collect that. So this 10%, 20%, and so on are the data produced by the script. We differentiate if it's standard out or standard error, and we also track the time when this was collected. This might be useful in the future so that we can basically see also in the past the speed of the script. Let's say what were the time differences between time outputs. Okay, so and while I was talking, the script finished, and we see the exit status as well. Since we use the Dyneflow there, we can handle multiple command executions at once, and it's still just one process doing that. So we have one process, and since we don't do any computation on the Ruby side, we are basically just waiting for the input-output. We even don't need more processes to do that. So this is all running in one, basically in the same process as the smart proxy. We could extend that in the future if we want, but for the remote execution work, for now, it seems like it shouldn't be that much trouble to really run it in the smart proxy. So the next steps will be one work that I have already done, but I needed. I've hit some issues. Was the SSH now runs the script directly over the SSH, and the better approach will be to move the script as a part of the file, and then running this file as a script instead. But the benefits of it will be the visibility of which script will be run on the remote host, and also we'll be able to basically kill the script. So if the user wants to cancel that, we will be able to determine the PID of the process and send the signal to it as well. And another benefit will be ability to run the script as different user. So we'll be able to SSH as a, let's say, as a root, but the script then could be executed as the effective user. So this is not implemented yet, but will be, I think, today. Another step then will be connecting the task on the Dynflow side with the task on the Foreman and the Foreman task, so that if the script finishes, we can get this data on the Foreman server and do more processing around reports and so on. So that's basically it about the current status of the remote execution on the smart proxy side. So are there any questions for this?
I've got two questions that I'm aware of. One is, where did the script come from? Was it already on the machine?
So the script here is, I can run anything here. So I can just run ls and see what happens. It already finished, so let's see. So, and you can see the ls. So this is really just triggering the thing, and it can be multi-line if we want it. So if Marek will show today the templating work in the remote execution, the idea is we'll prepare the scripts in the with the Foreman templating, and then send the result to the smart proxy. So the content of the script can be really bigger scripts if needed.
And then for the previous stuff that you showed off with the new Dynflow, there was a question of if you had two of the two that you showed up and both went down, will it resume?
Yeah, so if no executor is up at the moment, the first executor that runs will look at all the execution plans that can be cleanly resumed, which means that there was no other error in processing other than the executor going down. So if we synchronize the repository, if the executor goes down, this is not a big issue, because the real work is happening on the pulp side. So when the second executor comes up, it knows that it can resume this task, see the status on the pulp side, and just continue. So we don't break at the first time the executor starts. There is this consistency checking and making sure we run everything that we can.
Another question on IRC, which I guess you can see them there if you want to just take them in order.
Okay, so I don't know which, the first question about how many systems have we tested against. You mean the remote execution thing? What? Okay. So we haven't done some extensive testing for this yet. This is I did some testing before where I was running the single command on the single host, but multiple times, and then the limit I hit was number of processes running as one user, because all the commands were running on this single host. But even then, that was around 500 concurrent executions handled with one Dynflow executor with 5 threads in the pool. So really we are waiting just for the I/O there. So there was not very much work, but we need to do more load testing to really give hints on basically how the infrastructure should be deployed to handle large numbers. And the second question, if there is an interface to process output. Yeah, so this is the work that will be done on the Foreman side. So the Foreman, there will be two things to do. One is processing the data when the script finishes, and then showing the status and maybe some notification and so on. And the second thing is showing the real-time data when the script is really running. And we will probably not send all the data in real time to the Foreman from the Foreman proxy, because this is not the usual case that everyone will watch every script every time. So we would just load the network with no use. So in that case, if some user is looking at the real data at real time, there will be basically communication about this particular command, showing the progress just for this one. So we plan to do this logic, and this logic will be part of the Foreman remote execution plugin into the Foreman. So we will just use the data about the standard output or standard error. We'll be able to also filter the output of the script just for the standard output or standard error. We can then process the output and get some data based on that, but that's probably the next step after the MVP.
One other question that just came in: is there a way of managing the flow of remote execution across large groups, bucket method, etc.?
Yeah, so it's not there right now, and this is part of the another task that we've planned for. So if you look into to the Foreman remote execution pages, there is the old design page where we have the design that we want to implement, and there is information on enforcing the timeouts and the display time and this kind of execution flow thing, but it will be a combination of the Foreman part and the Foreman proxy.
All right, that looks like it. If any more come in, we'll revisit. And staying in the world of remote execution, we'll move over to Merrick to talk about job templates.
Okay, so Mark's Chrome just crashed, so please wait a minute so he can get back. Thanks.
So Ivan, in the meanwhile, just a quick question. Did you consider like an output metadata where a script might, if a script might yield a certain output or some pre-agreed output, that the user who is running the script can decide what will be visible in the UI?
Yeah, so this is part of the reporting. We haven't thought about it as in the first iteration, like for implementing that. But the same way, and Mark will show how you define the inputs on the template. We are thinking about defining the outputs on the template, where there would be the definition of what the process or what the output data is, and how to extract it from the raw output. So when let's say you have the package install, I can imagine that you would define that the installed packages is the output data, and in the definition of this output, you could define the procedure to run against the raw output to show this data. If this answers your question.
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry for my issues. It seems like when I share the screen, Chrome died, but hopefully everything is back to normal. I just shared my screen. Do you see my browser?
We do.
Great. Okay, so I just want to show the progress on the job and job templates. Ivan mentioned already some of these. So basically, I'll be talking about two objects here. First is a job, which basically stands for some kind of task, what you want to do remotely through remote execution. So for example, install package or restart some service. And the second object is a job template, which is kind of an implementation of this task or of this job. So here you can see I already have two job templates. Because we use the same templating mechanism that we have in Foreman, we already have some features for free, like snippets, blocking, templates, cloning, stuff like that, even versioning. And here we can see that this is how we can restart some service using initd. And the second example would be a command to restart service with system5 command service. And one thing you can see here is that we use this macro called input with a parameter name. So we can review that in the job tab here. Well, I'll talk about inputs in a minute. I'll just finish talking about the job here. So as I said, job is the general task that I want to accomplish. So here we have the job that this job template implements, and this is auto-completion field. So I have already one job name called service restart, but I can easily create a new one here. Here is the provider, because we plan to provide multiple providers for execution. So you can have implementation per provider type, and you can have multiple implementations for job name, for job. And here you can define the template inputs. So you can say that the service name will be an input that's required from the user when he actually wants to invoke this remote execution. So here you have to just define the name of the input, and you can then later use it in the job template here just by using its name. We support multiple input types. So you can use value-based input type, and you just specify the fact name, and the value will be loaded from the fact on a particular host on which you execute this this job. Or it can be variable, which loads the data from either global parameters or smart variables. And you can have Puppet parameter that basically uses smart class parameter. So you have to specify the Puppet class name and the Puppet parameter name. So let me show if I want to create a new template. Let's say we want to set message of the day. So it could be something like echo. Now here comes the input. Let's call it MLPD. And we'll push it into etc message of the day. So I use input here, so I have to define it here. Its name was message of the day, and it's going to be, let's say, based on fact value, and the fact will be IP address. Job name will be message of the day. So I'll save this one. And now actually, if we already had implemented a user stories from job invocation, someone could invoke this command and it would be executed. We are not there yet, obviously, but what we can do at least is we can try rendering this so we can see what would be actually used. And here you can see that the input actually, or the ERB was evaluated, and here's a placeholder for the message of the day input. The reason why we can't display the value here is because we don't have a host. We are not in the context of the host on which it will be executed, so we don't know which fact can we use. But here's a small helper, so we can find a host that actually has facts already, and you can see it loads the value from its fact already. So we have the rendered template here. And one nice thing about this is that we can actually use the same rendering for any other templates we have. So, for example, for provisioning templates, I have some template here, and you can see that I also have try rendering here, and I can select, or you can see that here I'm using some snippet, and when I do the rendering, it actually renders everything from there. I can even do stuff like, oh, it's locked template, so I can't edit it, but let's open another one. Let's say this partition template. And I can do stuff like host interfaces each. And now we can print identifier of that interface. And if we choose, for example, someone with more interfaces, you can see that it actually renders the values here. So that's about it. Are there any questions?
I have one question. If the job templates are specific to a single provider, but I want to be able to do the same operation across multiple types of providers, it seems like I have to have a job template for each one. Is the only thing that differs between them right now the code itself?
If I understand correctly, you have to have a job template for each provider. But if there is something shared that you don't want to duplicate, you can extract it to a snippet and reuse it from both. Does it answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. I do not see any other questions at the moment. So thank you, Merrick. If any other questions come in, we'll grab them.
Just one question. Where do I actually pick the provider? Is this something on the host level, or is this runtime level?
Yeah. So the idea is that if you want to run some job, you have to specify its name, and then we will check if there are multiple providers for a given job name. If it is, then you have to select which provider you want to use, and maybe we could even add some default values if it's necessary, but we expect to mostly have one provider for a task and one installation. But we will be able to select which template or which provider will be used during invocation.
And one thing that what we were talking in the design discussions were tracking the provider on the per host basis, which would mean then basically running the job, specifying the input for different providers, and which provider will be chosen for a specific host will be determined from the host details. This makes sense if you have some host and you have the agent like salt agent or mcollective running there, you probably want to prefer that over something else, but you could fall back to SSH if you have the template defined for this provider and this job.
I could see a different use case though. For example, you saw service or packages. I could say maybe I have Puppet as a provider in that regard that knows how to abstract it to all operating system and everything. And maybe for another type of job, I really need to do it with through some other means. So maybe it could also be job dependent, not just host dependent.
By job dependent, you mean what?
So if I have a job that restarts a service, maybe I want to leverage mcollective service plugin, for example. And if I have set message of the day dynamically, I want to use maybe the SSH provider.
Yeah, so you define the provider on the template. So in this case, you would just, for the job that you want to use the SSH for that, like the message of the day, you would define just the template for the SSH provider. So every job and provider combination needs a template so that we know what basically instruction to send to the provider, and in every provider this will be a bit different data. So for the SSH, it's just rendering the script. For the M collective, it would be probably the data that the agent accepts. So that would be just some JSON to render, and so on. So that's how we would differentiate this.
Thanks.
All right. Sounds like a lot of exciting, good stuff with remote execution that we might be good for a deep dive in the near future to go over some of the new stuff.
Eric, just let me finish this. So we are now in the implementation for the MVP, which we have deadline for middle of August, where there should be the end-to-end scenario with the SSH and everything in for the basic usage. So ideally, we would like to have some more deep dive that we are implementing this design, and it would be there. There is still things that we need to implement before going some deep dive, but we can do it if the requests are there.
Sounds great. I think we're all looking forward to this. Last thing up will be a short demo from Daniel to show off some of the new select work.
All right, can you see my screen now? Yes. Yep. Okay, so this is a feature that Shalomi finished a few weeks ago. I think it'll be in Foreman 1.9. What it does is essentially to add, to use the library select2.js for all of the drop-down fields that we have in Foreman. I think you have seen some of this during Marek's demo, but essentially when you click on a field, now instead of having to look for your results, you can just simply start to type it in and say, so say there are a lot of tangents here. Say that you want to choose, I don't know, west, and see what, okay, and the results come up. This, I guess, could be more useful if you have a lot of host groups like here. There are like several hundreds. I can say production, list me all of the production host groups. I get a much shorter list. So just so you can see it, after you select it, you click on, if you want to clear out the field, there's a small X that shows up here that you can click, and it'll clear the field. There are a few things that developers can use now, like they're able to make this small boxes tags out of the values that you choose, and if you want to have different events to trigger on JavaScript when you open the dialog, close it when you select the value, that's something that it's possible to do right now. So that's it. Thank you, Shalomi, for your work on Select 2.
All right. I think we had one question from Brian on, do we have tasks to move this widget into all plugins? I myself am not aware. If it's available in core, then it is available for plugin use.
Yes. it's added by default to any drop-down field in Foreman right now. It's added by the application.js file. Has a function called onContentLoad that applies to like 2 fields automatically. If you want to not use it, you have to specifically disable it through JavaScript in your plugin.
All right, and that takes us to right at 10 o'clock. Thanks to all of our presenters and all those watching and all the good questions. We will plan to do this again in 3 weeks to show off any new stuff that's come along during that time. Thanks, and bye.
Thank you. Bye.